one thing that has made the United States military so effective is the language that everyone knows, that everyone uses. The language in the military is so specific so that everyone can be on the same page, know what the operation is, know how to complete it, and know what everyone else is doing. If you think about language, you have a language for your physical health too. All of you in this room know your body parts, know when something's wrong, know when something's happening. We don't have that same language for mental health. So one of the most effective things we can do is build mental health literacy and talk about mental health with a similar language. Without that similar language, we would be as stuck as you are on a mission or in the military without knowing what the operation is, without knowing what you actually have to do. At UCLA, we've done 60 years of research on physical health literacy. And what we found is that when people can name their body parts, identify when something's wrong, they are more likely to normalize conversation about their bodies and seek help sooner. Even if seeking help just means you Google your symptoms and you convince yourself that you have some rare skin disease, you're at least interested in seeking help, right? So when people say that mental health is like physical health, I agree, but we have to be specific about that. We can't just take that for granted. That can't just become a buzzword. If you think about physical health, all of you in this room know the difference between a sprained ankle and a broken leg. You know the difference between having a cold and having the flu, unless, of course, you're male. Because when I have a cold, it is crippling. It's devastating. I need a lot of attention and support. I don't know how severe the cold could be until I get, love. And then I have to determine if that cold could send me to the ICU. I don't know. I don't know what could happen. You know the difference between diabetes and cancer because you have learned all of those categories of physical health. We can do a similar thing with mental health. So if you think about the 5 factors of mental health, they are behind me on this screen. Everyday influences are things that affect you positively or negatively every day. So these are things that are more persistent, consistent, so things like stress, sleep, self-esteem, body image. The next category would be your environment, the home you grew up in, the school you went to, the way you were raised, your work environment, your relationships. Again, those things can affect you positively or negatively. The next thing to that is significant events. Significant events are experiences with loss, change, or rejection. They can happen multiple times in a year, but they are much less likely to happen multiple times than your everyday influences. Then you have mental health disorders, which are diagnosable mental health disorders, and then you have developmental disabilities. Separating these things into different categories is important because we do the same thing with physical health. And it's super important now because there is so much confusion about language. What's happening in our society today is someone experiences some kind of unhealthy stress and says they have an anxiety disorder. Somebody else goes through a breakup or depression or feels depressed and says they have clinical depression. Without these categories, we can't even have an accurate conversation about what's happening in mental health. And again, when you think about the specificity of language in the military, this is more specific than just saying mental health is like physical health. It gives you a more tangible thing to hold on to.